The early morning calm at NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Station was shattered by a series of urgent beeps. Tom Wilson, the night shift supervisor, nearly spilled his coffee as he stared at the readings on his screen. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. Thousands of massive objects had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. "This can't be right," he muttered, running diagnostic checks on the equipment. But every test confirmed what he was seeing. Within minutes, observatories around the world were reporting the same phenomenon. As dawn broke over major cities, people worldwide looked up at their screens and televisions in disbelief. An enormous fleet of alien ships, each the size of a small city, hung motionless just beyond Neptune's orbit. The vessels were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They gleamed with an otherworldly blue-silver light, their hulls covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change. The first transmission came 6 hours after their arrival. The message was simple, broadcast on all frequencies in perfect English. "This is the third fleet of the Star Alliance. We are stranded. Our drives have failed. We request assistance." At the International Space Command headquarters in Geneva, Captain James Miller stood before the hastily assembled Emergency Response Council. His weathered face showed no emotion as he delivered his report. "The alien fleet consists of approximately 3,000 vessels," he explained, pointing to the holographic display. "Their technology appears to be far beyond ours, but something has completely disabled their propulsion systems. They're stuck, ladies and gentlemen, and they're asking us for help." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. An alien civilization, clearly more advanced than humanity, was asking Earth for assistance. It seemed almost laughable. "Have they explained why they can't fix their own ships?" asked one of the council members. Miller shook his head. "Their initial communications have been limited, but they've agreed to allow a small team to dock with their command ship for direct talks." The selection process for the first contact team was quick but thorough. Besides Captain Miller, they chose Dr. Robert Green, Earth's leading expert in theoretical physics, and engineer Anna Thompson, known for her innovative work in propulsion systems. As their shuttle approached the alien command ship, the team got their first close-up view of the vessels. The alien ships were enormous, stretching for kilometers, their surfaces decorated with what looked like flowing rivers of light. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth. The alien ship's automatic systems guided their shuttle into a perfectly sized bay, where the team experienced their first face-to-face encounter with the aliens. The beings that greeted them were tall and slender, with iridescent skin that reminded Miller of Mother of Pearl. Their leader, who called himself Blue Star, stood nearly 3 meters tall. "We thank you for coming," Blue Star said, his words translated by a small device floating beside him. "Though we must admit, we are surprised that your species might be able to assist us." Thompson couldn't help but notice the slight condescension in his tone. She understood it. From their perspective, humans must seem like children playing with toys. "Perhaps you could explain the nature of your problem," Dr. Green suggested, maintaining a professional demeanor despite his excitement. Blue Star's explanation left them stunned. The aliens' quantum drive systems, capable of bending space-time itself, had simply stopped working when they entered this region of space. Their advanced technology, which had served them for centuries, was now useless. "It's as if the laws of physics themselves have changed," Blue Star explained, his translator conveying his frustration. "None of our solutions have worked. We are trapped here, and our supplies will not last indefinitely." Miller exchanged glances with his teammates. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. These incredibly advanced beings might need to be saved by what they considered primitive technology. "We'll need to study your systems," Thompson said, already thinking about possible solutions. "But I believe we might be able to help." Blue Star's large, silvery eyes studied them carefully. "You speak with confidence, despite your technological limitations. Why?" Miller stepped forward, his voice firm and clear. "Because, Blue Star, sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. And if there's one thing humans are good at, It's finding simple solutions to complex problems. As they began their initial inspection of the alien engines, none of them could have predicted just how true those words would prove to be, or how this encounter would change both their species forever. Engineer Anna Thompson stood in the massive engine room of the alien command ship, her tablet computer looking absurdly primitive next to the gleaming quantum drive core. The alien engineers watched with poorly hidden amusement as she took basic readings with her simple instruments. Their entire propulsion system operates on principles we've only theorized about, she explained to Captain Miller, who stood nearby taking notes. It's like they've built engines that run on pure mathematics. The quantum drive core towered above them, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with inner light. According to Blue Star, it normally manipulated the fabric of space-time itself, allowing their ships to cross vast distances almost instantly. But now it sat silent and dark, like a dead heart in the body of the ship. Dr. Green spent hours studying the aliens' technical documentation, his excitement growing with each new discovery. It's fascinating, he said, looking up from his work. Their drives work by creating a quantum field that ignores normal space-time rules. But something in this region of space is preventing the field from forming properly. Can we fix it? Miller asked, getting straight to the point. Thompson shook her head. Fix it? No. Their technology is too advanced for us to even understand completely. But, she paused, an idea forming. Maybe we don't need to fix it. Maybe we need to work around it. She pulled up a diagram on her tablet, showing it to the alien engineers. Your ships still have their old backup drives, right? The ones you used before developing quantum technology. Blue Star nodded. They are primitive fusion drives, barely capable of interplanetary travel. We keep them only for emergencies. Perfect, Thompson smiled. Those we can work with. Over the next few days, teams of human and alien engineers worked side by side. The humans were amazed by the aliens' technology, while the aliens were surprised by the humans' creative approaches to problem solving. Thompson's plan was bold. Combine the aliens' fusion drives with human rocket technology to create a hybrid system powerful enough to move the fleet. It wasn't elegant, and it wouldn't be fast, but it might work. You want to attach chemical rockets to our ships? Blue Star asked, his translator struggling to convey his mix of horror and disbelief. That's like suggesting we power our ships by having everyone get out and push. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, Miller replied calmly. Our chemical rockets might be simple, but they work. They got us to the moon, to Mars, and they'll work here too. The first tests were conducted on a small shuttle. The human engineers, working with tools that looked like toys compared to alien equipment, attached modified chemical rocket boosters to the alien vessel's fusion drive system. It's not pretty, Thompson admitted, looking at their handiwork, but it should work. The chemical rockets will provide the initial thrust, while the fusion drive amplifies and sustains it. The test flight was scheduled for the next day. Nobody slept much that night. The aliens watched with barely concealed skepticism as the hybrid-powered shuttle prepared for launch. Beginning ignition sequence, Thompson announced from the control room. The chemical rockets roared to life, their bright flame a stark contrast to the usually silent alien engines. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly but surely, the shuttle began to move. The aliens' expressions changed from skepticism to surprise as their instruments confirmed what they were seeing. The shuttle was actually accelerating. It's working, Thompson exclaimed, checking the readings. The fusion drive is successfully amplifying the chemical thrust. We're achieving speeds well beyond what either system could manage alone. Blue Star studied the data in silence for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his translator couldn't quite hide the amazement in his voice. You've done the impossible. You've made our advanced technology work by combining it with something we considered obsolete. That's what humans do best, Miller said with a smile. We make things work, even when they shouldn't. As news of the successful test spread through both fleets, The mood shifted from despair to hope. The aliens began to look at their human saviors with new respect. Perhaps these primitive beings weren't so primitive after all. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. They had proven their concept worked on a small shuttle. Now they faced the much greater challenge of adapting this solution to work on thousands of massive ships, and time was running out. The vast assembly area between Mars and Jupiter buzzed with activity. Hundreds of human ships darted between the towering alien vessels like worker bees around massive hives. The operation to retrofit the entire alien fleet had begun, and it was unlike anything humanity had ever attempted before. Earth's major space agencies had mobilized every resource at their disposal. Supply ships carrying tons of rocket fuel and equipment streamed steadily from Earth and Mars. Space stations that had taken decades to build were being dismantled to provide materials for the massive retrofit operation. Captain Miller stood at the command center, coordinating the massive operation. The logistics were staggering. They needed to modify over 3,000 alien ships, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. "We're running behind schedule," Blue Star announced, his silvery form reflecting the light from nearby displays. "At this rate, it will take months to retrofit the entire fleet." "We're working as fast as we can," Miller replied, studying the progress reports. "This isn't exactly something we've done before." The operation had transformed space around Mars into a massive construction site. Human engineers and spacewalks worked alongside alien maintenance drones, attaching modified chemical rocket arrays to the massive ships. The contrast between human and alien technology was stark. Crude but effective human rockets being grafted onto sleek alien hulls. Engineer Thompson had developed an assembly line process, breaking down the retrofit operation into manageable steps. Teams of specialists moved from ship to ship, each focusing on specific tasks. Some installed the chemical rocket arrays, others modified the fusion drives, while others worked on integrating the control systems. The work was dangerous. The first accident happened 3 weeks into the operation, when a fuel line ruptured during installation. Quick thinking by both human and alien crews prevented a disaster, but it was a sharp reminder of the risks they faced. "We need to be more careful," Blue Star insisted after the incident. "These retrofits are more dangerous than we anticipated." "Space is always dangerous," Miller responded. "But we don't have the luxury of slowing down." He was right. Their latest calculations showed they had less than 2 months before a massive solar storm would reach their position. If the fleet wasn't mobile by then, both humans and aliens would be in serious trouble. The pressure brought out the best in both species. Alien engineers began adopting human safety protocols, while human crews learned to work with alien technology. What started as a desperate rescue operation was becoming a remarkable collaboration. 1 month into the operation, they celebrated their first major success. The alien ship Dawn Seeker fired up its hybrid drive system and successfully maneuvered through the assembly area. The sight of the massive vessel moving under its own power, chemical rockets blazing alongside the soft glow of its fusion drive, brought cheers from both human and alien crews. "It's not elegant," Thompson admitted, watching the ship's test flight, "but it works. The chemical rockets provide the raw thrust we need, while the fusion drives multiply the effect. It's like using a lever to lift a heavy weight. Simple physics, but effective." The success sparked a new wave of enthusiasm. Work crews doubled their efforts, and more ships began moving under their own power each day. The aliens who had initially viewed the human modifications with skepticism now eagerly assisted with the retrofits. "Your species continues to surprise us," Blue Star told Miller during one of their daily meetings. "We believed we were doomed when our quantum drives failed. Instead, you've shown us that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones." Miller nodded, but his attention was on the latest weather reports from Earth. The solar storm was approaching faster than expected, and they still had over 2,000 ships to modify. "We'll need to work faster," he said, already planning the next phase of the operation. "We can't afford to leave anyone behind when that storm hits." As he watched another successfully modified ship power up its hybrid drives, Miller couldn't help but feel proud. Humanity had taken on an impossible task and was making it work, one ship at a time. They were proving that despite their relatively primitive technology, humans could solve problems that even advanced alien civilizations couldn't handle. But time was running out, and the hardest part of their mission still lay ahead. The warning alarms blared across the assembly area, their urgent sound cutting through the usual hum of activity. Something had gone terribly wrong on the alien vessel Star Wanderer during its hybrid drive test. "The fusion core is destabilizing," Thompson shouted, her eyes fixed on the readouts. "The chemical rocket ignition sequence has triggered a cascade reaction in their power systems." Captain Miller rushed to the control center, where both human and alien technicians worked frantically to contain the crisis. The massive alien ship hung in space, its hull pulsing with dangerous energy surges that threatened to tear it apart. "If that ship explodes, it'll trigger a chain reaction through the entire fleet," Dr. Green warned, his usual calm demeanor shaken. "We've got thousands of vessels packed too closely together, all carrying highly volatile fuel mixtures." The alien crew aboard the Star Wanderer was panicking. Their emergency protocols had never accounted for this kind of hybrid technology failure. Blue Star's voice crackled over the communication channel, filled with barely controlled fear. "We must abandon the ship. Our containment systems are failing." But Thompson had other ideas. She studied the energy readings, her mind racing through possibilities. "The problem isn't in the fusion core," she realized suddenly. "It's in the interaction between our fuel mixture and their power distribution system." Without waiting for authorization, she grabbed her emergency spacesuit and headed for the airlock. Miller caught her arm as she passed. "What are you doing?" "Someone needs to manually realign the power distribution nodes," she explained quickly. "If we can't stabilize that ship in the next 10 minutes, we lose everything we've worked for." Miller nodded grimly. "I'm coming with you." The two humans launched themselves toward the troubled ship, using their suit thrusters to navigate through the chaos. Around them, other vessels were beginning to move away, creating a dangerous dance of massive ships trying to avoid potential disaster. Inside the Star Wanderer, emergency lights cast an eerie glow through the corridors. Most of the alien crew had evacuated, leaving only a few brave engineers behind to assist. Thompson led the way to the main engineering section, her tablet computer displaying a hastily modified schematic of the ship's systems. The fusion core pulsed dangerously above them, its normal smooth hum replaced by an irregular throb that shook the deck plates. "The chemical rocket fuel is causing harmonic resonance in their power grid," she explained as they worked. "It's like feedback in an audio system, but with enough energy to trigger a fusion reaction." Miller helped her access the power distribution panels, his steady hands connecting human diagnostic equipment to alien technology. The heat in the engineering section was rising dangerously, even through their protective suits. "We need to reset their entire power grid," Thompson said, her fingers flying over her tablet. "But if we time it wrong, we'll trigger the very explosion we're trying to prevent." The ship shuddered violently, and warning lights flashed across alien displays. They had seconds, not minutes, to solve this. "Now," Thompson shouted, initiating the reset sequence. For a terrifying moment, every system on the massive ship went dark. The fusion core's angry pulse faded to silence, and even the emergency lights died. They floated in total darkness, waiting to see if their gamble had worked. Slowly, methodically, the alien ship's systems began to restart. The power grid realigned itself, this time properly synchronized with the new hybrid drive system. The dangerous energy buildup dissipated harmlessly into space. "Power levels stabilizing," one of the alien engineers announced, his translator conveying both relief and amazement. "The crisis is over." The near disaster had taught them a valuable lesson. They couldn't rush the retrofit process, no matter how little time they had. Each ship's systems needed to be carefully calibrated to handle the interaction between human and alien technology. But they had learned something else too. When faced with a crisis, both species could work together perfectly, setting aside their differences to solve problems neither could handle alone. As they made their way back to the control center, Miller looked at Thompson. "Quick thinking back there. How did you know it would work?" She smiled behind her helmet visor. "I didn't, but sometimes you have to trust your instincts and take a leap of faith." The crisis had been averted, but its lesson was clear. They needed to be more careful with the remaining retrofits. And somewhere out in space, the solar storm was still approaching, bringing with it a deadline they couldn't afford to miss. The mess hall of Space Station Alpha had become an unlikely meeting point for two civilizations. Human engineers sat alongside alien technicians, sharing meals and stories while they took breaks from the massive retrofit operation. Today, Dr. Green sat with a group of alien scientists, trying to explain the concept of pizza to them. The aliens, who normally consumed nutrient solutions, were fascinated by the human practice of combining different ingredients for pleasure rather than pure sustenance. "But why do you need so many different flavors?" asked one alien researcher, carefully poking at a slice with a specialized feeding appendage. "Surely one efficient nutrient source would be sufficient." "That's exactly what makes humans interesting," Blue Star commented, joining their table. "They don't always choose the most efficient path. Sometimes they choose simply because they enjoy something." In another corner of the mess hall, Engineer Thompson was deeply engaged in conversation with alien engineers about their different approaches to problem solving. The aliens were particularly interested in human engineering shortcuts, what they called tricks, the humans called innovations. "Your species has a remarkable ability to find unexpected solutions," one alien engineer admitted. "We would never have thought to use chemical rockets as a backup system. Our training focuses on perfecting existing systems, not creating new ones." Thompson smiled. "Sometimes the best solutions come from necessity. Humans had to be creative because we didn't have advanced technology to rely on. We had to make do with what we had." The cultural exchange wasn't limited to technical discussions. Human crew members were learning about alien art, displayed as shifting patterns of light and color that told complex stories. The aliens, in turn, were fascinated by human music, particularly the way it could convey emotions without words. Captain Miller observed all this from his usual spot near the viewport. The massive alien fleet stretched out before him, countless ships being modified by the combined efforts of both species. What had started as a rescue mission was becoming something more, a bridge between two very different civilizations. "Your people have changed us," Blue Star said, approaching Miller. "Before this crisis, we saw less advanced species as primitive, hardly worth noticing. Now we understand that different doesn't mean inferior." Miller nodded. "We're learning from you too. Your technology might be advanced, but it's your perspective on the universe that's truly enlightening. You've shown us just how much is out there to discover." The exchange of knowledge went both ways. The aliens shared their understanding of advanced physics, while humans taught them about adaptation and resourcefulness. Medical teams from both species worked together, discovering that their different approaches to healing could complement each other in unexpected ways. One young human engineer had even started learning the aliens' primary language, a complex combination of light patterns and subtle color changes. In return, several aliens had become fascinated with human art, particularly abstract expressionism, which they said reminded them of cosmic phenomena. "Look at this," Thompson said, showing Miller her tablet. "The aliens have started incorporating some of our design principles into their ship systems. They're adding redundancies and manual overrides, things they never considered necessary before." The aliens had also begun to appreciate human humor, though they often took jokes literally at first. The concept of laughing at failure or misfortune was particularly puzzling to them, until they understood it as a coping mechanism. "We had forgotten how to adapt," Blue Star admitted during one of his daily meetings with Miller. "Our technology became so advanced that we stopped looking for alternatives. This crisis has reminded us of something important. There's always another way if you're willing to look for it." The retrofit operation continued around them, but now there was a different atmosphere. What had started as a desperate collaboration had evolved into genuine cooperation and mutual respect. Humans and aliens worked together seamlessly, each bringing their unique strengths to the task. As Miller watched an alien child, or what he assumed was a child, trying to learn human hand gestures from a laughing engineer, he realized that they were witnessing something historic. This wasn't just about saving a stranded fleet anymore. They were laying the groundwork for a lasting alliance between two very different but complementary civilizations. But the shadow of the approaching solar storm still loomed over them all. Their time for cultural exchange was running out, and they still had many ships to modify before it arrived. Time was running out. The solar storm's leading edge was already visible on long-range scanners, its massive waves of radiation and charged particles approaching faster than predicted. In the assembly area, thousands of workers from both species raced against time to complete the remaining retrofits. "We still have 500 ships to modify," Miller announced during the emergency briefing. "The storm will reach us in less than 72 hours. The control center was a hub of frantic activity. Displays showed the storm's approach, its angry red mass creeping closer to their position. Blue Star's normally composed features showed clear signs of stress as he studied the data. "Even with the modified ships working at full capacity, we won't be able to evacuate everyone in time," he said grimly. "Some will have to face the storm." Thompson stepped forward, dark circles under her eyes from working 3 shifts straight. "Maybe not. I have an idea, but it's risky." Her plan was bold. They would create a protective formation, using the already modified ships to shield the remaining vessels during the final retrofits. The modified ships would use their hybrid drives to maintain position against the storm's initial waves, buying time for the remaining work. "We'll need volunteers to crew the shield ships," Miller said. "They'll take the brunt of the storm." The response was immediate. Both humans and aliens stepped forward, willing to risk their lives to protect the others. The lines between the two species had blurred. They were now simply crew members working together to survive. Work continued around the clock. Engineers and technicians pushed themselves to their limits, taking stimulants to stay awake. The shield formation began taking shape, with modified ships positioning themselves in a protective array around the remaining vessels. "We're down to 300 ships," Thompson reported, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "But the storm's intensity is increasing faster than expected." The first wave hit them 20 hours before their deadline. The shield formation shuddered under the impact, but held. Inside the protected zone, work continued at a frenzied pace. Miller watched from the command center as another ship successfully fired up its hybrid drives. 250 remaining, he counted. Each successful retrofit was a small victory, but time was slipping away. The second wave struck harder than the first. Several ships in the shield formation reported damage to their new drive systems. Emergency repairs were carried out in space, with crew members working in the increasingly dangerous conditions. "Hull integrity failing on Shield Ship 7. Came an urgent report. Drive systems critical. Get those crew members out of there," Miller ordered. But before evacuation could begin, something unexpected happened. 3 alien ships broke formation to support the failing vessel, using their combined drives to reinforce its position. "We stand together," Blue Star declared simply. The storm's intensity continued to build. The protective formation was holding, but barely. Inside the shield, humans and aliens worked with desperate speed, their movements becoming mechanical from exhaustion and stress. 100 ships left, Thompson announced. The storm's main body was nearly upon them. The final hours were a blur of activity. Every available hand was put to work. Those too exhausted to continue were quickly replaced by fresh volunteers. The line between shifts disappeared. Everyone worked until they couldn't, then rested briefly before returning. 50 ships, came the count. Then 40, 30, 20. The storm's full fury was almost upon them when the last ship fired up its hybrid drives. The cheer that went up transcended species. It was pure relief and triumph. All ships modified. Thompson's voice cracked with emotion. We did it. But their celebration was short-lived. The storm's main body was minutes away, and they needed to move the entire fleet to safety. The shield formation began to collapse back into the main fleet as all ships prepared for emergency maneuvers. All vessels, execute emergency departure protocol, Miller ordered. Formation Alpha 7. Move. As one, the massive fleet began to move, thousands of ships acting in perfect coordination. The hybrid drives roared to life, a combination of chemical fire and fusion energy pushing against the storm's approach. They had won their race against time, but now came the true test. Could their improvised technology stand up to one of space's deadliest phenomena? 2 months after the Great Escape from the solar storm, Earth's space traffic control detected the return of a single alien vessel. It was smaller than the massive ships they had helped retrofit, but it bore the same distinctive markings of the Star Alliance. The ship carried Blue Star and a delegation of alien officials. They had come to formally thank humanity and deliver news that would change Earth's future forever. Miller, Thompson, and Dr. Green gathered in the United Nations Assembly Hall in New York, where representatives from every nation had assembled to meet the returning aliens. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Humans of Earth, Blue Star began, his translator projecting his words clearly through the hall. We return not just to thank you, but to acknowledge something remarkable. Your species saved not only our fleet, but also taught us a valuable lesson about the true nature of advancement. He activated a holographic display, showing the successful evacuation of the fleet. The images were stunning. Thousands of ships moving in perfect formation, their hybrid drives glowing against the backdrop of the approaching storm. The combined human and alien technology had worked flawlessly, carrying them all to safety. The Galactic Council has reviewed our report of these events, Blue Star continued. They were particularly interested in how a species we once considered primitive managed to solve a problem that our advanced civilization couldn't handle. Thompson smiled as she remembered the countless hours of work, the struggles, and the ultimate triumph. Next to her, Miller sat straight-backed, proud but modest as always. As a result, Blue Star announced, the Council has made an unprecedented decision. Earth is being offered full membership in the Galactic Alliance, effectively immediately. This is the first time in our history that a species at your technological level has been granted this honor. The assembly hall erupted in cheers and applause. But Blue Star wasn't finished. Additionally, we have established a new principle in our scientific approach. It is called the human perspective. The understanding that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one, and that innovation can come from anywhere, regardless of technological advancement. Dr. Green leaned forward, intrigued. You've changed your scientific methods because of us. Indeed, Blue Star responded. Already, our engineers are finding new solutions to old problems by applying your principles of practical innovation. We've learned that technology alone is not the measure of advancement. The aliens presented Earth with gifts, not advanced technology, but rather the knowledge needed to develop it safely and sustainably. They understood now that giving humans advanced technology would rob them of the innovation process that made them unique. Your species will reach the stars in your own way, at your own pace, Blue Star explained. But now you'll do it as our allies and equals. The ceremony concluded with the establishment of the first permanent alien embassy on Earth and plans for human embassies throughout the galaxy. But perhaps more importantly, joint human-alien engineering teams were formed to explore new ways of combining both species' approaches to technology. Later that evening, Miller stood with Thompson and Dr. Green on the observation deck of the International Space Station, watching Earth below. Did you ever imagine, Thompson asked, when we first got that distress signal, that it would lead to this? Miller shook his head. I was just hoping we could save them. Instead, we ended up changing each other. That's the real legacy, Dr. Green added. Not the technology or the alliance membership, but the proof that different civilizations can learn from each other, no matter their level of advancement. Below them, Earth continued its eternal dance around the sun. But now it was different. Now it was home to not just humanity, but to representatives from across the galaxy. And somewhere out there, alien ships still flew with human-designed hybrid drives, a permanent reminder that sometimes the most advanced civilizations can learn from the simplest solutions. The story of how humans saved a stranded alien fleet became legend throughout the galaxy. But the real story wasn't about saving ships. It was about how two very different species learned to see the universe through each other's eyes and became better for it. It was a legacy that would shape both civilizations for generations to come.